Okay, one of the things you said earlier, I think this is a great point too. And people, this is a piece of wisdom I think people should just hold on to because it's so applicable to so many domains of life. But if the product is free, you are the product, right? And this sort of ties into what we were talking about offline before we started. All human organizations are businesses, right? This includes your government, this includes your church, this includes every club you're a part of, right? There's some purpose that's being aimed at and achieved by that group, but it needs to have more inflows than outflows to be sustainable across time, right? Because there's a cost to being alive, frankly. So I just wanted to bring that up, and then so that points to like this whole concept of printing money for free to just solve all our problems. Like it's not what it appears to be. It's quite its opposite.
No, they have to name it to really fool the public with it. Modern monetary theory.
Right, yeah.
Wait, what's modern about it?
Not modern, not monetary, not a theory, just theft.
The fact that people fall for it hook, line, and sinker is embarrassing.
So what I would like to ask you is, given the education you had coming into Wall Street, what would our forefathers say about the state of affairs today? You know, how far have we diverged from the foundational principles that originally made America great? And I want to be very specific here, like pre-Fed America. People often want to attack me and say, oh, you say America's the greatest socioeconomic experiment in history. Look what it's doing in the world today. It's an imperialist. It's blowing everything up. It's fully corrupt.
Right,
like
but that's
all post-Fed America.
Right.
I'm talking about pre-Fed America, where we became dominant in the world through libertarian principles, essentially. What would our forefathers that established that say about our reality today?
I mean, it's worse than how you just described it, right? So not only did the central monetary systems debase everything good about humanity over the last 50 years, but they're exact opposite of the intentions of governing law, right? Why do we have rule of law? We have rule of law to keep boundaries on the extremes that humans can inflict on each other, right? So if that's the case, and then the embodiment of American law is the Constitution, which is a very simple document. It's my favorite document ever written. It outlines natural law. These aren't laws of man. This is natural law. Do unto others as you would have done to you is a natural law. Don't take from your neighbor is a natural law. Don't commit treason against your people. That's a natural law. So what has been bastardized since that realization, which is what still driving people in here today, just on the romanticism that it once existed, not that it's applied to its fullest extent today, but what that allowed for is these mega corporations and oligarchies to essentially arise as offshoots of this money printing. They're byproducts of it, they're offshoots of it, and then they consume all of the governmental agencies that are unelected. Like that's where you can draw a really distinct line that unelected bureaucrats are typically also connected to corporate oligarchy, which is a byproduct of monetary policy. It's very, very simple. Don't spend more than you take in. Buffett says this greatly, like term limits. Oh, if they don't balance the budget, they don't get paid. Like there are so many easily identifiable ways to fix this, where even if you just said, hey, you can buy all the missiles you want, but you can only buy them with this amount of money that you take in from us.
Right.
And then we're going to lower it by 95% because that's what we owe.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that the forefathers, I don't want to speak for them because they're much greater men than I'll ever be, but I think they would stand up and sing from the rafters like they did during the Revolution again and remind us what sacrifices it took to form this country. And you have to make sacrifices for freedom in general. That's what I think the military-industrial complex, the bureaucratic, technocratic super governments, and the central banks have done brilliantly, is they have dumbed people down into not realizing that if you want freedom, it takes effort, it takes commitment, it takes passion. And the most free people in the world are the most dangerous to them, right? Because they can't be controlled. And it has nothing to do with your economic standing. It has only to do with what you have here and here.
Right.
So to answer you, they would just say, hey, apply our Constitution, please. Fire 99% of the government. Make it, how many antitrust lawsuits should there be? Right. Break up all these mega corporations. Wait, we have 4 companies that are worth 92% of our entire year GDP. Mm-hmm. Does that not worry anyone?
Right. And even that concentration in the corporate oligarchy, as you call it, though, is a consequence of fiat, right? The fact that the bigger you are, the cheaper you can borrow, the more share buybacks you can engage in. You have this artificial growth mechanism that's benefiting from confiscation via inflation and taxation.
Yeah, you termed it right. It's not artificial growth. It's artificial increase of asset price, but not growth.
Right.
Like let's pick on Amazon. Sorry, Jeff. How did Amazon put millions of mom and pops out of business? What was a core factor?
Initially, they were skirting state tax law, I guess, on some of their cells.
That's part of it. But because Wall Street gave them money without cost and without consequence and without end. So what did they even do to big giants like Clorox and Procter & Gamble? They drove prices down so much to make it uncompetitive where they took over business. How that wasn't illegal to begin with, maybe it was actually illegal and just nobody applied the law.
Don't we want that, though? I mean, so again, we talked about this earlier, in free markets, prices deflate. That benefits consumers. So don't we want that to happen?
No, because by them achieving that and not having a profit all the way until 2 years ago? They went all that time without generating a profit, yet became a multi-trillion-dollar company. Wait, so if you're not making profit, why would I invest money in you? That means you're not successful. So it was literally a confiscation and takeover of mom and pop goods and services and distribution. Plain and simple.
Gotcha.
From logistics and distribution now being a core thing to all of the online shopping. And people, it's convenient. Yeah, do you realize that 18.93 million people and counting lost their businesses because of your lazy ass? Give me a break. And it effectively didn't lower price of goods for long duration. It was an illusion of that.
So this is a fiat subsidized monopoly, effectively. Right. Because it would not have achieved that without the subsidy. And they're almost all
like that.
Yeah.
Right? Share buybacks. Wait, if you and I want to go pick a company, like Apple, humongous share buyback. We got to compete with them to buy shares? All right, I'm out. I'll lose that battle. That's like you and I going and getting a fight with the Russian military. We probably can't beat them, just the two of us. So we're not going to fight that battle. But this is a construct we're faced with. It's unbelievable.
So this is, the fiat currency, let's just say the legal monopoly that is central banking is just driving centralization.
It enables it, it encourages it, and it lights it all on fire. Right? Should a company self-liquidate, should be the question most investors ask. And then should access to infinite money at no cost be available for any human, let alone a company or a government? No. These are all byproducts and roots of not tethering monetary supply to something very simple like a commodity or something even more simple like population growth.
Right.
Either way, you prevent things like this from happening.
You think money supply should be tethered to population growth?
I'm just throwing out constructs that would be a lot more beneficial, that are easy to understand. I don't have an opinion because I don't think there should be any monetary authority. That's my opinion.
Right.
But if we're going to have this theoretical process,
it should be based on something other than whim.
Right.
Makes sense.
Like you could do so many different types of, deflators, GDP correlations. There are very, very simplistic ways to theoretically increase the money supply, to then increase the velocity of money, because it has to have purpose behind it. The purpose behind ours was first theft, and then corruption.
Yeah, I agree with you. Any of that would be better than just the outright whim we have controlling it all today. But in my studies of it, there was one this is in England. It was basically the Bitcoin. I think this is in the 1800s. I can't recall the name of the act or the law they tried to pass, but essentially they said, this is it. This is the money supply. 15 million pounds forever. It's a fixed money supply. We're never going to change it again. You know, they'd dealt with bouts of inflation previously. This was the lesson they had learned. It was intended to be a permanent implementation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Bitcoin, right? Fixed money supply. No one can change it, corrupt it. Everybody played by the rules. 30 years later, right, there's some economic emergency. They're like, oh, never mind. We got to repeal it and change it and all that. So no matter what we do, it seems like as humans, so long as there is an option to change that money supply according to our short-term interest, we'll do it every time, right? We'll cut off our nose to spite our face sort of thing.
Yeah, and that has to do with centralization, right?
Yeah.
Like by being decentralized and no one having the ability to be corrupted to do that,
Right.
you've solved for it.
Right.
And there's no question there. It solves for that.
Right. Which gold was a proxy for, Bitcoin perfects.
Yeah, and if you took, let's say it was 10 million pounds of gold, if you took that and distributed it to every mom and pop has an ounce, right? A lot harder to centrally change the edict or dictate there, right?
Yeah.
Makes it almost impossible,
Yeah.
if not impossible. And that's like, oh, well, that's how Bitcoin's distributed.
Yeah.
And then having a finite amount of it.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like it's something, again, people have thought about this, right? Like they tried to implement it in England a couple hundred years ago, but due to human frailty, fallibility, whatever, it's just not implementable pre-Bitcoin.
Well, and the Spartans tried really hard. Their coin was lead.
Iron money, right?
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and that was trying to get away from the illusion of the sheen of precious metals and,
Right.
and silver and gold. So this isn't something that we're only now thinking about, as you're pointing out. This has been an echo of humanity for our entire existence, that we really haven't had the construct or the instrument to implement permanent change until now.
Yes.